Hello and welcome to our talk from the Leeds Digital Festival on why do you have to go and make things so complicated, navigating SEO in 2025. I'm Malcolm, I'm the Performance Director at Hub, so I've been doing SEO for over 20 years now.
And I'm Sanjay the Head of SEO, been doing SEO for just over 9 years now. Brilliant. So to start things off, we thought we would look at kind of the current state of play in the SEO world. If you were going to your LinkedIn feed or any of the publications, you would see stuff like this, which is clusters of articles all talking about AI and its impact on SEO. And obviously what comes with that is usually the fact that AI is taking over everyone's jobs and SEO is dying now. But the truth of the matter is, this is fine. Because in reality, SEO is not dead. And the thing is, we've been talking about it as well, instead of looking at LLMs and AI as a bad thing, you should be incorporating LLMs into your SEO strategy, just like any other user group.
So the first thing to tackle then, I guess, is why as an SEO industry, we make things so complicated. Firstly, it makes us seem clever. So being able to talk in crazy SEO jargon and acronyms confuses a lot of people and people don't understand it. So it gives us kind of like that one-upmanship. My take is if you can't explain something in plain English to someone, you're doing it wrong. You probably don't know it well enough yourself. There are a lot of people in our industry that are basically just foghorns. They like to just shout about everything to try and get as much attention as possible early. And kind of, yeah, we all know who they are. We won't go into any details on that. There's also this concept of there's nothing genuinely interesting to be talked about. There's a lot of people constantly making a name for themselves on social media, and SEO really doesn't change that much. Lots of stuff happens, like Google removing various bits and bobs, but there's probably not something new to publish every day. So a lot of time people are just desperate to find things to talk about. So they just push stuff out that isn't necessarily the greatest stuff out there. And there's a level of impatience within our industry. We have a tendency to kind of jump on stuff and make assumptions about things without actually doing the necessary research, without waiting for it to settle down, without actually kind of bothering to kind of come up with a proper answer. We just kind of put our opinions out there, our biases and stuff like that, just to get ahead of it all.
Cool. So we're going to kind of debunk some of the hype surrounding GEO, so generative engine optimization, AIO, artificial intelligence optimization, and how it's kind of a bit bogus at the moment as well. So the first thing I wanted to get out there really quickly is the fact that it's still early. Things are always changing. Nobody actually really knows what's going on or what's about to happen. Nothing is fixed. In the example when we did this live, we mentioned how in 2026, Apple will be releasing its own AI powered search engine, which will be powered by Google as well. So things are always evolving, nothing's fixed. It's okay to kind of stick to what you're doing right now. And at the same time as well, we touched on it in the talk, but AI does either make stuff up or get stuff wrong. In this example, by one of our team members here at Hub, they asked it for some data and stats, and then when we asked it to justify where it pulled the information from, you can see here it essentially made the figures up. When we're touching on kind of what it gets wrong, so previously in ChatGPT 4, at the time, it couldn't actually tell you how many R's were in strawberry or would get it wrong. This is now being fixed in ChatGPT 5. However, it still gets it wrong when you ask it the word count for the bees in blackberry. So right now, our advice to clients, to everyone listening, to everyone looking at this right now is hold, because truth be told, your SEO strategy is likely still good. And when we say likely, we've highlighted this because we still come across SEO strategies that are still a bit terrible. This again is backed up by Google's Danny Sullivan, which say that actually good SEO is optimizing for those generative engine optimization platforms. So some of the things that we're noticing online, and again, we're going to debunk a lot of this right now when it comes to SEO and AIO. So the first thing is optimizing your content, your site for LLMs. Essentially, the rule book has been clear from day one. We're optimizing our content and our brands and our websites for the end user. On top of this as well, scraping AIOs. I've just touched on this previously on one of the slides, but it still does get things wrong. So if you are solely relying on these platforms for research or for information, please do take it with a pinch of salt and still do the things that you've been doing prior to this technology. Another thing is bulk creation of AI content. Google has said, look, it's fine to have AI generated content, but there still has to be some level of human oversight, because as I mentioned, you don't want to scrape all this good research, create a load of content out of there for it to be factually wrong. Finally, doing things like LLM.txt files. Right now, as we're aware, a lot of the platforms are just ignoring them outright. And the final thing, and if you are going to watch our talk from our digital PR colleagues from Hub as well, is actually generating authors or people from your business by AI. Essentially, you aren't going to work. You need to make real brands and real people behind those brands. The biggest myth outside of all of this is apparently that Google is losing market share. You might have seen this last year with the emergence of social search, and now with the emergence of these new tech and new platforms. Again, everyone's saying Google's dying, but in reality, Google is still on top. It has the largest market share, and its usage is still growing according to SparkToro as well. And it's got the most data. So for us right now, we know we can rely on it, hence why we use it for a lot of our current performance marketing channels. And the biggest thing for us, I've touched on it before as well, it's got the biggest market share, it's got the most data. So for Google, it doesn't need to move first. It can wait, it can hold its time and figure out how to monetize new technology. In this example here, we've touched on AI mode. And you can see right now it's tucked away in the corner. This was meant to be kind of a disruptor for the actual SERPs, but right now it's not its default setting for SERPs. The reason being, again, is because Google hasn't been able to monetize it yet, but it will do in the future.
There are some edge cases that are obviously kind of feeling a lot of pain at the moment. Most sites that we kind of audit recently are seeing drops in kind of clicks and impressions and things like that, and that's perfectly understandable. We'll get to that in a moment as to why that is. There are some complete edge cases, though, that are really kind of struggling at the moment. Generally, if your revenue comes from serving ads or literally just getting as many eyes on your content as possible, it's probably going to seem like it's the end of the world at the moment. Judgment Day, your traffic will have tanked, your impressions will have tanked, and that solely comes down to the fact that zero-click search is at an all-time high. So it's estimated to be around 60% of all searches within Google no longer result in someone actually visiting a website, because Google's now doing a much better job of actually serving those results within its SERPs. Everything to do with informational queries now is either migrating to these AI overviews, so people are actually just reading it within the page themselves, or they're using LLMs like Gemini, like ChatGPT, like Perplexity to actually do the tasks for them. So an example might be Stack Overflow. So I've not actually seen the statistics, but I dare say their traffic has been absolutely decimated by all of this, because whereas before we might have said, how do we do an array in Python, and gone to a Stack Overflow article to fix a particular bug or problem. Now we can just query that stuff in these systems and get the answers straight away and have a more conversational kind of experience rather than being judged by some of the people that are on these forums. No marketing presentation would be any good without a funnel. So this is a funnel based around kind of the different stages of a marketing, someone going from awareness all the way through to taking action and potentially purchasing. As you can see, it's quite messy. So someone will go through a lot of these touch points. It isn't necessarily just a linear journey. They're going back and forth and such. In terms of LLMs, at the moment, your brand is being made aware. People are being made aware of your brand when they do kind of searches and informational searches, and Google is presenting kind of like brands and links to various sites and things like that. And also, people are starting to do research about these brands on these platforms as well. So getting kind of an understanding of the brand there and what they stand for. At the moment, what we're not seeing is people actively purchasing through these. Now that might start to change. A couple of days ago, Shopify announced further kind of movement on their integration with ChatGPT, so you can actually shop directly within ChatGPT on Shopify stores. And we know that kind of like this kind of shoppable search is set to be a big thing in 2026 moving forward. At the moment, though, clicks from LLMs are generally quite low. People are likely kind of, as with a lot of social media, people are doing a lot of the legwork on these systems and getting exposure. But then when it comes to the actual buying process or the actual kind of meat of what they're trying to achieve, they're still going to Google and actually completing that journey. So we have a lot of clients who regularly liaise with their customers to make sure that everything's going well, and they ask them questions about like how they found them and things like that. You get a lot of people who say, we saw you on TikTok and then we came to Google and we did a search for you. And we're getting some of that coming through from like ChatGPT and stuff as well. So similar sorts of journey to how people are using social media for large ticket items where you can't necessarily buy through a TikTok shop, etc. And this carries through to revenue, really. So this is one of our clients where they currently make about £352,000 a month from Google Organic, about 51,000 from Bing Organic. They make £197 from all the LLM traffic combined, and even what is it? In effect, a quite small search engine, DuckDuckGo. They're making kind of like 8 times the revenue from DuckDuckGo. We also discovered recently that LLMs have pivoted slightly. So it used to be, for example, ChatGPT was heavily reliant on Bing search data and various things like that, and various plugins and things. Now we know that kind of ChatGPT and some of these other systems are actually scraping Google, or they're not technically doing it themselves, but they're potentially using systems like data for SEO. To counter this, Google have removed the ability to kind of serve 100 results at a time. You used to be able to put and number equals 100 at the end of your query, and you'd get 100 results rather than the default kind of 10. These systems like Data for SEO used to make use of that by kind of making one query to Google, pulling back 100 results, and the cost may have been like £1. Now they're going to have to kind of do 10, in effect 10 sets of 10s to facilitate them all together. So you're likely to see kind of rank tracking software. There's a few already come out with statements like, well, data beyond the top 20 isn't really valuable, all this kind of stuff, but they're trying to kind of work out how to not pass this new cost on to us as consumers. But there's more kind of scrutination, more kind of investigation into kind of whether these rank tracking systems are any good anymore, and what the prices are going to be in the future. So we'll now take you through what works in 2025 and what will continue to work beyond into 2026 and beyond, basically.
Yes. So what basically works is the stuff that was working prior to this new technology coming on in the market. Essentially, the unsexy stuff, or as we put it, doing the basics right. In this example, when we did the talk live, we mentioned how, again, kind of a similar thing with kitchen nightmares, going into a restaurant, boosting efficiencies, doing the basics properly. And it's the same thing with SEO as well. When we're looking at kind of your website, or in this case, your organic kind of performance strategy, you want to keep it basic. So if you were looking at building a house, the first thing you would need is a solid foundation. When you're looking at pulling together an SEO strategy, the first part of your website would be getting the technical foundations of your site right. These would include things like making sure your site is crawlable by search engines in particular, that your pages are getting indexed, or the pages that you want to get indexed are getting indexed, that the content on your page, so the content, the imagery, etc., is getting rendered properly. And Malcolm will touch on how LLMs still have an issue with this as well. And also canonicalization. We know right now this obviously is a really good way to tell search engines we want certain pages to rank, but without a good internal linking structure, it probably isn't going to do the right job for you as well.
So from an LLM perspective, we as an SEO industry kind of used to work under the premise that Google couldn't render JavaScript, or would render it kind of like partially. This has obviously changed over the last 4 or 5 years or so, to the point where now Google can render most JavaScript websites and does a really good job of it. And what we used to have a delay between crawling and indexing, as the crawlers in effect had to make another pass over the website and render it, which is a much more laborious process. That's now dropped away. So now the fear around JavaScript websites has kind of dropped, and people are kind of like no longer bothered about things like dynamic rendering and stuff like that. Well, these systems, or the majority of these systems anyway, aren't rendering JavaScript at the moment. Some are starting to render JavaScript, but again, it's likely to be very limited. So we have to start thinking about these old kind of technical SEO techniques of, do we serve different content or different HTML, let's say, to the LLMs that we might do to Google, sort of thing. So to spin off from that, I guess cloaking works with these systems. They don't have a rule book like Google, whereas Google would do things like, right, okay, if you're showing your users this content and us another set of content, they would be able to compare the two and basically penalize you for cloaking. These systems don't really care. They just want to get your content so they can consume it. They're not actually showing your content as such. They're consuming it and regurgitating it in a different fashion. So they're all about consuming. So they're less bothered. So you could do a flattened version of your website, or you could do a version that doesn't have all the ad panels and blocks and stuff in there. That's nice and fast, and you can serve these to the LLMs. I would be a bit more skeptical about doing it for anything Gemini related or anything Google related, because there you are more likely to still get caught up in kind of like the rules as such. But for things like ChatGPT and stuff like that, you should be fine just actually cloaking and serving them different content.
Perfect. Moving on from the foundations of your website, your strategy, the next bit is the bulk of the house, of doors, walls, or windows, etc. And for that, we're looking at content. A couple of things to keep in mind, just to keep things basic, is basically getting the metadata properly. I gave an example how we've got clients that will come on board to us, and I will still see in 2025 they don't have a kind of rule in terms of here's how we're going to structure metadata. I think keeping it simple is always the best way for this.
There's a common misconception with regard to metadata that Google ignores it, because Google often rewrites it and presents different kind of titles and descriptions within the SERPs than might be present on the page. This doesn't mean Google's ignoring it. It's probably still using it for relevance filtering and stuff like that. It just means it's not showing it de facto what you presented it with. So there's still value in kind of like spending time on these.
Well, the next thing is schema. Obviously, we know schema is a great way of marking up your key pages, of feeding obviously search engines, but also these LLM platforms really key data of what content is on your page as well. Page templates. So for me, we're doing it now as well. We're looking at bucketing page templates into different things. So product, category, blog, auxiliary, and just making sure all the templates are working correctly. You've got the right information on there, and you've got the right touch points as well. And content relevancy, so we've kind of touched on this before as well, but just making sure that the content is relevant. Obviously, as we know, search demand and search trends change over time. If you've got stale pages, it could be worth just re-looking at them, revisiting them, and seeing how to change them to match with the times. That leads us on to search intent. So again, making sure that we're meeting the right intent for the user. And not finally, one of the things we touched on previously was internal linking, just making sure that you've got the right internal links, but also the right anchor text, not just having kind of the same anchor text, click here, browse more, but diversifying the anchor text and feeding a stronger signal to search engines. And again, this is something that our DPR team members touched on, but just making sure that you are presenting faces behind the brands. We do know from a trust perspective, users and customers are going to trust you more if they can see people behind the brand and not just faceless entities going forward.
So from an LLM point of view, they don't really care about your content as such. They're not going to, I guess, rank you based on your quality of your content. Your on-site content definitely isn't king in this scenario. For years, we've been saying that SEO content, or this concept of SEO content, content that's specifically produced for SEO purposes, is pretty garbage. A lot of kind of agencies are still kind of in this trap of, we will produce X amount of blog posts for you a month, and after 4 months they've completely run out of subjects to talk about, so they just start farting out garbage continually. I audited a client, a prospective client, several years ago now, before we took them on board, and they work in the property space. And they were employing an agency, and this agency was basically scraping people also ask questions, and then sending them off overseas to have a 500 words blog article for each one of these questions written, and then they were getting pushed live on the company's blog. A perfect example of this being garbage was they're obviously interested in property auctions and stuff like that, and talking about that in their niche. There was one of these articles was, can you auction a property in Monopoly, which obviously relates to a board game, nothing to do with actually the property niche, as it were. So we need to kind of keep it all about our customers. So when you're starting to plan out your content strategy, the first thing you really need to do is understand your customers and what their needs are and what their pain points are. It's not going to a keyword research tool and looking for how many people search for this, how many people search for that. Generally think about, right, okay, what might cause my customers to break out of the buying kind of funnel, and what information might they need to kind of complete that journey, and what they're looking for. You've got to think about how they're going to consume this content. There's still a lot of kind of content being produced that is like text with no consideration for images, diagrams, videos, any of this sort of stuff. a lot of the time the content probably isn't best served to your users as a written document. It might be that you're a video that then has a transcription below it or something like that. It isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. We need to move away from everything just being text-based constantly. The other thing to consider really is what LLMs haven't already seen. So if we take it for granted that they've seen pretty much everything out there on the internet up to a certain point, because ultimately we didn't know they were stealing all this stuff, you know, people weren't kind of going, oh my God, what's happening, until we discovered it. They didn't know they could block these systems and stuff like that. So they consumed everything and they're now trained on all this information. They're not really bothered if you produce another article that is the same as 500 other articles that have been written over the last 5 years, unless it's got some unique aspects to it, unless it's got unique data, it's up to date. So this, rather than just doing generic content just to try and rank for something, now we really have to double down on this mindset of, can we produce something that's better than is already out there? Can we kind of put our own spin on something? Can we surface data that is unique to us?
Well, and then the final kind of component of our house to round everything off is the roof, and that's your brand and digital PR activity. So some of the things that we obviously still need to do in this modern age of LLMs and AI is obviously make sure that we're still building our brand's authority and also building our trust as well. The more coverage, the more links you've got on relevant sites, means that you're going to build that naturally over time, and you're going to be more trusted, not just from users, but also from search engines. And the final thing is looking at your overall external presence. There has been a bit of a rise in terms of how users are navigating towards certain other platforms, like TikTok as an example. This isn't obviously a search engine. It's not going to kind of take over Google's market share for what they need. But like Malcolm mentioned, raising awareness of your brand on these platforms means they're going to probably search for you afterwards on the surf or interact with you anyway. So it's always good to spread your awareness across the web.
So here again, from an LLM perspective, quality is more important than ever. They're looking to see where you're featured and what they know about these things. So when we used to kind of talk about authority and co-occurrence of entities and relationships, topical relationships between a website and your website, and are they experts in what you do? This is more important than ever in terms of how these systems are going to choose to serve you or not, as to whether or not you're deemed as being present in these places. They're probably less bothered with links because they're not built on the things like PageRank and stuff like that. They're more interested in presence, as it were. So, you know, actually being cited in these places is probably more important than being linked to from these places. So it's important that your brand is present and out there. But it isn't just a case of dumping your brand everywhere. So there's a bit of a thing going around at the minute about Reddit, and Reddit is seen as a kind of like high value source, along with Wikipedia and things like that, for these systems, just because of the amount of information that is available on these platforms and how it's been made readily available. That isn't to say that your strategy should suddenly pivot to, we need to work out how to get our brand present on everywhere on Reddit as many times as possible. So if someone's going to say, we've got you 10 placements on Reddit this month and we're going to do 10 next month, it needs to be more considered, more thought out. So what are the conversations that are genuinely happening on Reddit? What are the subreddits that relate to your products, your services? As we should have been doing anyway with any sort of forum or any area of interest within your niche. Is there value in us having a voice within that kind of conversation? And if so, how do we go about doing it authentically, from a point of actually kind of helping that kind of conversation flow, rather than just trying to force our brand into it, because that never works. We need to double down on niche and industry. So obviously I'm not going to tell anybody off if they came to me and said they've got a link from the BBC, but I think there's a lot more importance now in terms of industry publications and stuff that's specific to your niche, because that helps with the kind of entity recognition and co-occurrence side of things, to make sure that you are seen as, you know, this is part of the standard EAT stuff anyway, in terms of being an expert within your niche, and these systems are likely to rely on that, so co-occurrence side of things.
And the final thing on this house analogy, which kind of doesn't really, kind of breaks the analogy really, is actually the tracking and the data behind your strategies and your website. So making sure that you've got rank tracking set up as well, that you're tracking a certain cluster of keywords, obviously, which is cluster tracking, and making sure that you're keeping an eye on page performance as well. If certain folders are falling off, why are they falling off? They're increasing. Can you then replicate that across your site? Even though we've done a debunking of LLM platforms in general, just also keep an eye on them. We are aware, like Malcolm has showed you, they do generate some level of traffic and some level of revenue. So over time, keep an eye on that. If that's increasing over time, it does show that your sites are being brought into those conversations more and more. So it's good to keep an eye on that sort of stuff. And the biggest marker for success, we're kind of moving away from visibility and traffic and revenue being kind of the biggest marker of success for your strategies. Are you basically converting the users on your site? And if you're not, how do you increase that conversion rate from organic? And the final thing, as we're aware right now, it's becoming a bit more, the user journey is becoming a lot more complicated now. People have so much more touch points, so many ways to interact with your brand as well. So keep an eye on things like your referral traffic, organic social traffic in general, and organic. How do they all play in together, and kind of what is that doing for your business overall?
So for an LLM consideration, Google does report on kind of LLM traffic already. By default, you don't actually have to do anything. It's just you have to then actively kind of like find it, as it were. It isn't kind of set up as a default channel grouping by default, so you have to set one up yourself. So example here is I did a search on ChatGPT for stuff around kind of hub and got a lot of information through from it. And there is literally a little black box you can click, and it allows you to click through to our website. And when you click through to our website, it brings you to the contact page with UTM source equals chatgpt.com on it. So GA4 is able to kind of bucket that in the source ChatGPT. There is no other information being passed, and Google doesn't really know what to do with that. So you have to define your own channel side of things. So you basically work out what all the different referrers are from all the different systems and plug them all in. And there's a regex you can use to do that, which I'll post at some point. And then basically from that point onwards, you can then start to work out what your level of traffic for LLMs is on an ongoing basis.
Cool. So at the moment right now, I think the key message is don't believe the hype around just optimizing for these platforms. The basics still work, but at the same time as well, I'm still a big believer in the fact that SEOs or digital marketers that use this new tech are typically going to get ahead as well, because it's going to make us more efficient. Here are some examples that we pulled out that we use this tech just to kind of make us better. So pre-AI, as an example, I think one of the biggest skills back in the day was Excel formulas, pivot tables. That stuff is still great to have in your knowledge bank, but with AI now, we can do things like custom Python scripts and APIs, and we can do that with these AI platforms now. If you want to figure a formula out, but you don't know which one to use, you can ask it and it will give you the right answer, plus the formula as well, so you don't have to spend time writing that formula yourself. Things like creating briefs from scratch right now, you can go away and feed it different prompts, depending on if you're obviously agency side, different websites, it will give you different templates for that as well, so you're having to do it manually. And the biggest thing, obviously, we do it till this day. Keyword research is obviously still important for all of our strategies, but having to go through and manually categorize your keywords will take time. Right now, feeding the right prompts, the right rules means that you can speed up that process and essentially spend more time doing the stuff that's going to drive revenue and success for your clients. Another thing as well, this is kind of more offsite, but when you're looking at kind of expert sources, where to find them, we do it now. We'll look at tools like Systrix as an example, who's ranking ahead of us. If it's a certain site that's got a load of lists on there, you obviously want to make sure that you are within that list because it's trust factor, it's ranking ahead of you as an example. But at the same time as well, on the next slide, we can show you that LLMs and AI tech can help speed this up. So instead of you doing manual searches, looking at different platforms for these sites to get sources in, you can use LLM prompts rather than keywords to pull that list in and identify which sources you want to get cited in. The one thing that we've said as a tip is the fact that you need to consider the depth of the content as well. So if you are looking at a list of 100 sites to get ranked in, the ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever platform you're trying to get listed on, it might time out by the time it gets to your number as well. So just making sure that when you're having these conversations, your site is as high up in that list as possible. So overall, AI, yes, I wouldn't believe all the hype around it, but it is your friend. I would definitely still be using it.
I'm going to kind of end this with a bit of a kind of like fearmonger, I guess, in terms of the scarier side of where this is going. I did a degree in computer science and AI, and I don't think we're anywhere near done with this technology. I think we're at the very start of it. I think things will evolve really quickly over the next 4 or 5 years. I did a talk in 2017 around kind of brand and how it would potentially be the only future ranking factor, and I'm still very much believe in that in terms of where these things are heading. If you imagine a future where everybody's empowered by AI, so anybody can make a website, you can already do it really easily. You can basically get the system to make the HTML for you and things. So anybody can make a decent website using AI now. Anybody can make fake reviews now. The Google Gemini Pro, the video creation functionality on that is absolutely amazing. So you can literally make a review of someone saying anything you want. Anybody can make Facebook, Insta, and TikTok ads, and basically it's already rampant. There's already loads of fake AI, what we call AI slop, out there on Facebook, catching people out left, right, and center. So everybody can do this now, and we'll continue to be able to do this even more efficiently as things start to move forward. So overall, the barriers to entry have become lower than ever before. Even sort of like getting product now has become easier than ever before. It's very easy to kind of now get product shipped over and sell literally from the container as you are shipping that product over to the UK. Here's a perfect example: Grace's Bags, or Grace Bags. So this was a company that sprung up and was largely kind of promoted by Facebook ads. They all seem to have a very similar narrative of how they've been doing this for many, many years. Now they're going to be closing down, and how they want these bags to last forever, and this kind of really kind of playing on your heartstrings. But in reality, this is completely fake. There is no body making these bags. They're just mass-produced stuff being sent over from China. There is no brand behind it. There is no legacy or pedigree behind it. This brand has existed for like 6 months tops, side of things. So what we need to be thinking about moving forward is why someone should buy from you, and why would they buy from you rather than someone else. If someone else is selling exactly the same product from as you, why would they choose you over somebody else? Sometimes it comes down to price, but there are other factors that come into play as well. Ultimately, should search engines and LLMs promote you? I mean, why? It's always been the way with Google, genuinely, why do you think you should be first? And if you can't answer that question, you're probably not going to be first. You're not going to be able to get first, become first. You've got to have like something that differentiates you from the market. Currys do really well in organic SEO, and they do really well in social and all this kind of stuff because they've got stores everywhere. They generally do try and do the right thing by their customers. They have a really good social media kind of a team. All this stuff all plays into a part in things which these systems can't do. So in effect, you have to do what AI can't. So you have to build a brand following. So you have to kind of get people to buy into your brand, your ethos, the people behind your brand, using genuine human reviews. And the way humans write reviews is all over the shop. It's proper scattergun. Some people will leave like a 5-word review. Some people will like write a complete diatribe of their experience with you and all that kind of stuff. It all counts towards kind of making things real. You ideally want to become synonymous with what you do. So if you can become the next Hoover, we don't vacuum the house, we all Hoover it, even though we've probably got like a Shark Hoover or something like, or Shark Vacuum, I should say. You need to become synonymous with what you do, ideally. You need to show the humans involved, so genuine humans. And these people ideally need to be referenced elsewhere on the internet. So for example, if you were to look up me, you'd see pictures of me within Google, you'd see the places I publish content across the internet, etc. That helps these systems understand that you are a real human being with expertise in a particular niche. And you need to have a unique opinion. There's no point just being the same as everybody else and not how, you need to genuinely have something worth saying that stands out, rather than just having the same opinion, the same 500-word article spun in a slightly different way. You need to ideally provide outstanding local customer service. And I say local because obviously these people who are drop shipping products and stuff like that probably haven't got a local presence in the UK. So having the reassurance that they can kind of call someone up and talk to someone and get quick turnaround on their repairs, or drop their product off, have it repaired and things like that, will go a long way in the future to kind of making people feel reassured that the people they're dealing with are genuine and doing the right things. Really though, traditional marketing still matters tons. I've been a massive advocate of this for a long time, but actually coming to Hub now, I get to see the impact of TV campaigns and track a load of data while it's happening and things like that. So I get to see the genuine impact of things like TV and door drops and things like that. At Hub, we have a tendency to kind of like use our client's budget wherever we see the best fit happening at any point in time. So we might dial down certain activities to kind of transition into others, so we can experiment with various things and stuff like that. But the nice thing here is it really is an integrated agency. We genuinely have all of the different tools to use whenever we need them, rather than having to kind of outsource or pass stuff around. This means that when we do a TV campaign for someone for the first ever time, they get results like this. So this was a £45,000 spend over like 2 weeks on ITV. And you can see, obviously, this client's target audience were very heavily bought into Tipping Point and The Chase, but they made their money back within the first 2 days of a 2-week campaign, and it carried on kind of like having benefits for the remainder of the 2 weeks. We can also see the inverse of this as well, when someone stops spending money on offline, so they stop their offline spend and maybe just solely rely on online. There's a strong correlation with kind of like brand awareness dropping off, so the amount of people searching for them in Google starts to decay. And then we even found kind of strong correlation between almost like a 3-month gap between the dropping kind of spend and the actual kind of organic visibility kind of petering away as well, because you could argue that Google maybe thinks they're no longer important anymore because no one really cares about them anymore. So key takeaways from this presentation. Firstly, SEO is 100% not dead. Sanjay and I still have a job. We're still very, very busy and we're still growing. It's not even close to being dead. It just needs to kind of change. You need to start thinking about these different surfaces and how everything all knits together. We as SEOs have had to kind of now learn way more about CRO, web design, social media, everything. You know, SEO isn't this dark thing anymore. You just give us X amount of money and we give you a report at the end of it. It's very much become a mature marketing channel. Google definitely isn't losing. Google's massive. You know, the Department of Justice case was dropped. They don't have to sell Android. They don't have to sell Chrome. They've still got the most data out of any system. Hence why other people were trying to scrape their data and actually use it. Side of things. LLMs are changing how we kind of interact with stuff. Mostly it's informational search, and majority of people, there was a report done that showed that ChatGPT activity dropped by about 60% when spring break started this year. So it shows that kind of like the younger demographic, students in particular, are using this a lot. They're not necessarily using it for buying and stuff like that. Adoption is still quite low with regard to normal people. So if I, for example, asked my parents, they would have no idea what I'm talking about, unless it had something to do with Farmville. So unless they're actively forced to actually use it, so for example, they are reading AI overviews, but they don't really know what they are, but they're not clicking on the AI mode tab and using it that way, sort of thing. SEO generally covers this GEO, AIO, whatever you want to call it. You just need to consider them as different systems, and if your customers are generally likely to be using these systems, you need to have a strategy that kind of incorporates them. It's the same with social media. Like if your audience isn't there, then you probably don't need to pivot your strategy based on it. And to win long term, you need to do basically what AI can't do and what AI won't be able to do in the future, so you can still become a flagship brand within your niche and still continue to thrive. That's it. Thank you very much for listening to us talk through our presentation from Leeds Digital Festival. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.